What if I told you that the Kansas City Chiefs, a team that has already won 4 Super Bowls in 6 years, just found a way to get even scarier? Let that sink in. Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and now, potentially, Haason Reddick lining up on the other side of the ball, a pass rusher so electric, so relentless, so absolutely terrifying for offensive linemen, that the moment his name got connected to Kansas City, the entire NFL world stopped and said, "Wait, what?" Because here's the thing. Most teams in the NFL right now are trying to figure out how to beat the Chiefs. They're drawing up schemes, spending money, building rosters, all designed to finally knock Kansas City off the throne. And while all of that is happening, the Chiefs are sitting in the corner, quietly putting together what might be the most dangerous roster they've ever had. And they might have just added a weapon that changes everything. But before we get into what Haason Reddick joining Kansas City would actually mean, before we talk about what this does to Mahomes and Kelce and every quarterback in the AFC, we have to understand something. We have to understand just how the Chiefs got here. How they became the kind of team that other franchises use as a blueprint. How Patrick Mahomes turned a franchise into a dynasty. And why, right now, in this moment, the NFL might be on the verge of watching something truly historic unfold. This is the story of a dynasty that refuses to stop growing. And it's just getting started. Let's rewind the clock for a second. Not all the way back, just far enough to understand the architecture. Far enough to see how Kansas City built something that most franchises only dream about. When Patrick Mahomes first walked into Arrowhead Stadium as a starter back in 2018, the NFL had a feeling. Not a certainty, just a feeling. A whisper that something special was happening. He had a cannon for an arm. He had footwork that made defenders look like they were standing still. He had this quality that you can't really coach and you can't really teach. This calm in the chaos, this ability to look at a defense falling apart around him and somehow make it look like a dance. And in that first full season as a starter, he threw for over 5,000 yards and 50 touchdowns. 50. That's not a typo. He was 22 years old. The league was on notice. And then the wins started stacking up. Playoff runs, conference championships, and then the Super Bowl. Kansas City standing on top of the mountain, Mahomes holding the trophy, Andy Reid with that mustache glistening under the stadium lights, and the whole NFL suddenly realizing that this wasn't a flash in the pan. This was the beginning. And through every single one of those championship runs, through every fourth quarter comeback, through every wild throw that somehow found its target, Travis Kelce was right there. The most reliable weapon Mahomes has ever had. The tight end who turned the position into an art form. The guy who catches the ball when everyone in the stadium knows it's going to him, because even when you know it's going to him, you still can't stop it. Kelce has been the heartbeat of this offense for over a decade now. He's been to so many Pro Bowls that it almost feels routine. He's broken receiving records for tight ends that most people thought would never be touched. He has catches in playoff games that still don't make sense when you watch them back. He is, by every possible metric, the greatest tight end who has ever played this game. And he's still playing. Still hungry. Still running routes that make defensive coordinators wake up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat. With all of that context sitting in your mind, with the image of Mahomes and Kelce and everything they've built together, imagine what happens when you add a defensive weapon like Haason Reddick to this equation. Because here's where things get really interesting. Haason Reddick is not a guy who snuck up on the league. This is not some project player, not some developmental prospect who might pan out. Haason Reddick is a certified pass rusher who has been absolutely torturing offensive linemen for years. Let's talk about what this man actually does on a football field. He rushes the passer. That's the simple version. But the detailed version? The detailed version is something else entirely. Reddick has that rare combination of speed off the edge, hand technique that can counter any block attempt, and a motor that simply does not stop. He plays every snap like it's his last. He plays every rep like the quarterback on the other side personally disrespected him. He gets around corners in ways that make offensive tackles look like they're standing in quicksand. He had a stretch of production that put him in the conversation with the elite pass rushers in the entire NFL. Double-digit sacks. Back-to-back-to-back dominant seasons. The kind of numbers that make general managers open their checkbooks and write down numbers with a lot of zeros. He went to the Philadelphia Eagles, where he played alongside other talented defenders and continued to wreak havoc. Then came a stint with the New York Jets, where things got complicated, contract disputes, a holdout, a messy situation that unfortunately overshadowed what he could actually do on the field. But here's what never changed. His talent. His ability. The raw, physical, explosive skill that makes him one of the most dangerous edge rushers when he's locked in and motivated. And now, the whispers, the rumors, the reports, they're all pointing to the same place. Kansas City. The Chiefs. Now here's where you have to slow down and really think about what this means. Because on the surface, you might think, okay, great, the Chiefs are getting a good pass rusher. Cool. But let's dig deeper. Let's think about what Haason Reddick on this Kansas City defense actually does to the entire ecosystem of playing against the Chiefs. Think about what it means for quarterbacks on the other side of the ball. Right now, every quarterback who faces Kansas City already has to deal with a suffocating scheme under Steve Spagnuolo, one of the most brilliant defensive minds in the history of the game. Spagnuolo has been doing this for decades. He's the coordinator who blitzed Tom Brady in the Super Bowl and broke the greatest dynasty of all time. He's the mastermind who designs defenses that look simple from the outside and feel impossible from the inside. And his defense already has weapons. Kansas City has been building on that side of the ball for a while now. They have pieces in the secondary, pieces up front, guys who can get after the quarterback and guys who can cover in the back end. But adding Reddick, adding a legitimate elite-level edge rusher who demands a double team, who forces offensive coordinators to shift their protection schemes, who can win one-on-one against almost any tackle in the league. That changes the math. When you have to account for Reddick on one side, you're suddenly freed up for everyone else. Other rushers get cleaner looks. The linebackers can blitz more freely. The defensive backs get an extra half-second of coverage because the quarterback is under pressure. And when you're playing against Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce on offense, that half-second might be the difference between a turnover and a touchdown. But wait. Let's flip this completely. Because here's where the real conversation starts. Here's the part that nobody is fully talking about yet. When you add Haason Reddick to this Chiefs team, when you make this defense even more dangerous, what happens on the offensive side of the ball? Think about it. When your defense is absolutely terrifying, when opposing offenses are forced to score quickly because they know your offense is going to score on them too, what happens to your own quarterback? More opportunities. More possessions. More chances for Patrick Mahomes to do what Patrick Mahomes does. More targets for Travis Kelce to find the soft spots in zones, to run seam routes against linebackers who have no business covering him, to make catches on 3rd and long that extend drives and eat up clocks. A dominant defense doesn't just stop the other team. It energizes your own offense. It gives your guys confidence. It changes the entire rhythm of the game. When you know your defense is going to get the ball back for you, when you trust that Haason Reddick is going to get around the corner and force a 3-and-out or maybe even a fumble, you play looser. You play faster. You play like the guy who knows the house odds are in his favor. And Patrick Mahomes playing with confidence and loose creativity? That is the single most terrifying thing in professional football. Let's talk about the other pieces of this offense for a second, because the Mahomes-Kelce connection is so dominant that it sometimes overshadows what else Kansas City has been building. Over the past couple of years, the Chiefs have been constructing receiving talent around their stars that gives Mahomes multiple weapons at every level of the field. The running game has improved. The offensive line has had its ups and downs, but the coaching staff has consistently found ways to compensate. And Mahomes himself has shown, time and time again, that even when the pieces around him are imperfect, he makes them work. But here's the thing about having Kelce. Travis Kelce is not just a great tight end. He is a chess piece that forces defenses to make impossible decisions. When you put an extra safety near the line to stop the run, Kelce beats you over the middle. When you play your safeties deep to take away the big play, Kelce finds the seam at 15 yards and turns a short gain into a first down. When you put a linebacker on him, it's almost not fair. He runs routes so precise, so well-timed, so sophisticated, that the linebacker is usually just a passenger on the play. And when you try to put a corner on him, good luck, because his size and strength in traffic make him almost impossible to bring down after the catch. The only real answer to Travis Kelce is to bracket him. Double-team him. Devote 2 defenders to him on every snap. And you know what happens when you double-team Travis Kelce? Everybody else on the field gets one-on-one coverage. And Patrick Mahomes has made a career out of making teams pay for that. This offense, even without adding anything new, is still one of the most explosive, unpredictable, and difficult to stop units in the entire NFL. Adding a dominant defense with Haason Reddick leading the charge just makes the whole thing run even more smoothly. Let's talk about something that the casual fan might not immediately think about, but that every serious football observer understands deeply. Momentum. In the NFL, especially in January, especially in playoff games, momentum is as real as anything else on the field. A defense that gets a big stop, a defense that creates a turnover, a defense that forces a punt on a crucial drive, that energy travels. It flows from the sideline to the offense. It fills the stadium. It gets into the quarterback's head. Now imagine you're a quarterback in January. You're playing the Kansas City Chiefs in Arrowhead Stadium, which, by the way, is already one of the most intimidating environments in all of American sports. The noise levels in that building are legendary. The energy is relentless. Chiefs fans have been doing this for years now. They know how to get loud. They know how to make opposing offenses false start. They know how to affect the game just by being there. Now imagine Haason Reddick is lined up across from your tackle. And he's coming off a strip sack on the previous drive. And he just forced a punt the drive before that. And now your right guard is leaning over, whispering something to your right tackle, and you can tell from the look in their eyes that they're worried. That they don't have an answer. That moment, that psychological weight, that's what a Haason Reddick addition brings to this team. Not just the sacks. Not just the pressures. But the doubt that he plants in opposing offensive lines. The doubt that spreads to the quarterback. The doubt that makes a team play scared. And when you're playing scared against Patrick Mahomes, you're already losing. Now let's talk about Andy Reid, because no conversation about the Kansas City Chiefs is complete without talking about the head coach who ties all of this together. Andy Reid is, quite simply, one of the greatest football coaches who has ever lived. That's not hyperbole. That's not fan enthusiasm. That is the consensus opinion of people who have studied this game at the highest level. He has been doing this for decades. He has taken multiple franchises and turned them into winners. He has developed quarterbacks, built offensive systems, and created the kind of culture where players want to perform. But here's what's remarkable about Reid that doesn't always get the attention it deserves. He adapts. Every single year, something changes. The roster shifts. Pieces come and go. The rules evolve. The defensive schemes around the league adjust to try to stop what Kansas City is doing. And every single year, Andy Reid finds a new answer. He finds a new wrinkle, a new formation, a new way to create mismatches. He finds the thing that the defense hasn't seen yet, and he attacks it relentlessly. This is the man who has been the offensive mastermind behind this dynasty. This is the coach who gives Mahomes the freedom to be Mahomes while also giving him the structure to be consistent. This is the architect. And now, with Haason Reddick potentially joining this roster, with the defense getting even stronger, Reid suddenly has a new tool available. He has the ability to call plays from ahead on the scoreboard. He has the luxury of knowing that if this drive doesn't work, the defense is going to get the ball back quickly. He has the confidence to be aggressive on fourth down, to take shots deep, to go for it in situations where other coaches might punt. Because when your defense is elite, when you trust your defense the way you'd trust a vault, you play offense differently. You play offense with joy. And Andy Reid's offense is already joyful. Adding Reddick just makes it more of a party. Okay. Here's the moment I want you to really stop and feel. Think about every team in the AFC right now that has been building toward the goal of knocking Kansas City off the top. Think about the effort, the draft picks, the free agent signings, the coaching hires, all designed to finally close the gap on the Chiefs. The Buffalo Bills have Josh Allen, one of the most physically gifted quarterbacks in the league, a man who can beat you with his arm or his legs or his sheer will. They have built a terrifying offense and have been knocking on the door for years. The Baltimore Ravens have Lamar Jackson, the most electrifying dual-threat quarterback in football, a two-time MVP who makes defenses look broken just by lining up under center. They have speed everywhere. They have weapons. They have a defense that can keep them in any game. The Cincinnati Bengals have Joe Burrow, ice water in his veins, one of the most accurate passers in the game, a quarterback who has already beaten Kansas City in an AFC championship and knows exactly how to compete at that level. The Houston Texans, rising fast with C.J. Stroud. The Los Angeles Chargers with Justin Herbert. Teams getting better, getting faster, getting closer. And just when you think the gap is finally closing, just when you think the rest of the AFC has figured out how to compete, Kansas City goes and potentially adds Haason Reddick. It's like they're playing a different game than everyone else. It's like the Chiefs look at what everyone else is doing and say, okay, great, thanks for catching up, and then they take 2 more steps forward. Let me ask you something. Have you ever watched a chess game where one player was so far ahead that every move the other player made, no matter how smart, just made things worse? Where every response to the problem created a new problem. Where the outcome felt inevitable even though the game wasn't technically over. That's what it feels like to watch the AFC try to catch the Kansas City Chiefs. They add a receiver, the Chiefs add a pass rusher. They improve their offensive line, the Chiefs improve their secondary. They get faster on one side of the ball, the Chiefs get faster on both sides. It's exhausting. It's incredible. And if you're a Chiefs fan, it's absolutely beautiful. But let's not forget, the NFL is unpredictable. That's the whole point. That's why we watch. That's why Super Bowl windows close. That's why dynasties eventually end. Injuries happen. Schemes get figured out. Players get older. The cap catches up. Something always shifts. But right now, in this moment, with Mahomes still in his prime and Kelce still defying age and Andy Reid still scheming and now Haason Reddick potentially joining the party, right now, the Kansas City Chiefs look like a team that is simply built different. Let me paint you a picture. It's January. Playoff football. Arrowhead Stadium is shaking. The kind of cold that gets into your bones. The kind of crowd noise that makes communication impossible. Some team, let's call them Team X, has fought their way through the bracket. They've won their division, they've beaten a tough opponent in the wild card round, they've survived the divisional round. They're here. They made it. They're playing the Chiefs. First possession of the game. Team X comes out running the ball, trying to establish physicality, trying to set the tone. 3 runs. Field goal. Okay, they're on the board. Good start. Now Kansas City gets the ball. Mahomes lines up. Kelce is in the slot. The first play is a designed run. Keep the defense honest. Second play is a short crossing route to the tight end, who gets tackled immediately. 3rd and 5. Here we go. Mahomes takes the snap. He's got pressure coming. But the offensive line holds, just barely. He feels it, steps up in the pocket, and in the fraction of a second before the defensive end gets to him, he launches a throw to a receiver who just beat his corner on a double move. First down. Team X's defense huddles up. They talk about what they saw. They make adjustments. Meanwhile, Kansas City is already at the line of scrimmage. No huddle. Mahomes is scanning the defense, changing the play, pointing this way and that. Kelce is motioning from one side to the other, reading the defense, communicating back to Mahomes with his eyes. These 2 men have been doing this together for so long that it's almost telepathic. Another first down. Another chunk play. And suddenly, Team X is in trouble. They've seen nothing that looks like a flaw. There's no weakness they can attack. And while all of that is happening, while Mahomes is picking apart this secondary, Haason Reddick is standing on the sideline. Getting ready. Waiting for his turn. When Team X gets the ball back, Reddick lines up across from the left tackle. He does a quick little stutter step at the line, just enough to make the tackle flinch, a false start, 5 yards back. Before the defense even had to do anything, the offense beat itself. 2nd and 15 now. The tackle is nervous. He's seen Reddick on film. He knows what's coming. He knows that speed rush is real, that the inside counter is dangerous, that if he lunges even a little bit he's going to get beaten. Reddick comes off the ball like he was fired from a cannon. He wins. The quarterback gets the ball off, barely, but it's under pressure, off platform, underthrown. The safety undercuts the route. Interception. Arrowhead erupts. And now Mahomes is getting the ball back with the game tied, the crowd absolutely unhinged, and a defense that just gave him the ball. What happens next? You already know. This is what Haason Reddick brings to the equation. Not just his individual stats. Not just the sacks and the pressures and the quarterback hurries, but this cascading effect, this domino impact that spreads through every single aspect of the game. When the defense creates turnovers, the offense gets better field position. When the defense gets 3 and outs, the offense gets more possessions. When the defense makes the quarterback uncomfortable, the other team's game plan falls apart. And when the other team's game plan falls apart, Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and this entire Kansas City offense runs absolutely wild. It becomes a feedback loop of dominance. And once that loop starts, it is almost impossible to stop. Now let's talk about Travis Kelce specifically for a moment, because we've mentioned him throughout this story, but he deserves his own section. He deserves the spotlight turned directly on him, because what he has done and continues to do for this offense is something that will be studied in football classrooms for generations. There's a conversation happening right now in the football world about whether Travis Kelce is slowing down, whether age has finally started to catch him, whether we're watching the last few chapters of a legendary career. Here's the answer: maybe. Probably, eventually. That's what happens to everyone. That's the nature of time and the nature of a violent sport. But here's the other part of the answer. Even a slowed-down Travis Kelce is still better than almost every other tight end in the NFL. His route running is so technically precise that he doesn't need top-end speed to create separation. His hands are so reliable that even when he's draped by a defender, he makes the catch. His football intelligence, the way he understands defensive coverages, the way he reads the field, the way he knows exactly where Mahomes is going to deliver the ball before the ball is even released, that doesn't diminish with age. If anything, it gets better. The mind gets sharper even as the body changes. And when you pair that intelligence with a quarterback like Mahomes, who is still very much in his prime, who is still throwing absolute darts, who is still scrambling out of trouble and making throws that no other quarterback in football attempts, let alone completes, what you have is a connection that defensive coordinators genuinely lose sleep over. There is no perfect answer to Travis Kelce. There are only imperfect choices. And against this offense, imperfect choices get punished. Here's something that I think gets overlooked in all of this conversation about the Chiefs dynasty. The culture. You can talk about talent all day. Talent matters. Of course it does. You need Mahomes, you need Kelce, you need talented players at every level of the roster. But talent alone doesn't win 4 Super Bowls in 6 years. Talent alone doesn't maintain that level of consistency, that relentless standard, that refusal to be satisfied. What the Kansas City Chiefs have built, what Andy Reid and the front office have created in that building, is a culture of accountability, of excellence, of believing that winning is the expected outcome rather than a happy surprise. When you bring a player like Haason Reddick into that environment, a player who has the talent but who has sometimes been surrounded by dysfunction and drama, something interesting happens. The culture works on him. The standard works on him. Being around Mahomes in practice every day, seeing how he prepares, seeing how he studies, seeing how he approaches every single rep with the same intensity, whether it's a Wednesday walkthrough or a Super Bowl drive, that changes you. Being around Travis Kelce, who has won at the highest level and still works like he's trying to make the roster, who still runs routes like a rookie trying to prove himself, that inspires you. Being around Andy Reid, who has been doing this longer than almost anyone and still brings an enthusiasm and a creativity and a genuine love of football to every single day of practice, that motivates you. The Chiefs don't just add talent. They add talent and then they elevate it. And Haason Reddick, fully bought in, fully motivated, playing in this system with these players in this culture? That's a different version of Haason Reddick than anyone has seen before. Let's take a step back for a second and look at the bigger picture. The NFL is at a fascinating crossroads right now. You have a handful of quarterbacks, Mahomes, Allen, Jackson, Burrow, Herbert, Stroud, a few others, who are all genuinely elite. The talent at the position has never been deeper. The competition in the AFC especially has never been more intense. At the same time, the league is evolving. Offenses are getting faster, more creative, more spread out. Defense is harder to play than it used to be because the rules have shifted to protect receivers and quarterbacks. The game favors offense in ways it simply didn't a generation ago. Which means, in theory, that defense shouldn't matter as much as it used to. But here's the thing. That's what everyone keeps saying. And then the teams that actually win the Super Bowl, they almost always have a dominant defense as part of the equation. You can score points all day. But in January, when the margin for error disappears, when every possession becomes precious, when one turnover can flip the momentum of an entire game, defense becomes everything. The Chiefs have already understood this. They've had elite defensive units before. They've mixed the offensive brilliance with defensive toughness, and they've held that trophy up at the end of the year. Adding Haason Reddick is them doubling down on that formula. It's them saying, we already know how to win championships. Let's just keep making the machine better. Okay. I want to do something now. I want to give you the timeline of fear. Follow me through this. It's preseason. Reddick is getting used to the system. Nobody is quite sure what to expect. He's healthy, he's motivated, but it's preseason. Scripted plays, limited reps. You file it away. Then week 1 hits. He lines up on the edge. The tackle across from him has been doing this for years. He's good. He's experienced. He's watched the tape. He's ready. And Reddick beats him on the first play of the game. Just instantly. Off the snap, around the edge, hand in the face of the quarterback before he can even set his feet. Incomplete. 3 and out. Week 2. Offensive coordinators have noticed. They start chipping Reddick with a tight end on his side, doubling him before the snap. This opens up space for other rushers. Other guys start winning. More pressure on the quarterback. More hurried throws. More incompletions. By week 6, nobody has an answer. Double team Reddick, someone else wins. Single team him, he wins. Blitz from the other side, the quarterback feels it. The Chiefs' defense is creating pressure on almost every single third down. And in the meantime, the offense is rolling. Mahomes is putting up his usual video game numbers because he's getting the ball in favorable situations. Kelce is finding gaps in zones that are already stressed by the run game and by the threat of other receivers. The offense is clicking, the defense is dominating, and the Chiefs are, again, somehow, impossibly, looking like the best team in football. Week 12. They're playing the Bills. Josh Allen is playing out of his mind, because of course he is, because he always does against these guys, and it's a knockdown, drag-out battle. Back and forth. 1-score games. Fourth quarter. Bills have the ball. 3rd and 6. Reddick is lined up on Allen's blind side. You know what happens next. Chiefs ball. Mahomes in victory formation. That's what this addition means. Not just statistically. Not just on paper. But in the moments when it matters most. There's a word that gets used a lot in football. Legacy. Every great player thinks about it eventually. Every dynasty starts to measure itself against history. And right now, the Kansas City Chiefs are doing something that only a handful of teams in NFL history have done. They're sustaining excellence across a decade. Not just being good. Not just making the playoffs. But being genuinely great year after year, in a league designed with parity rules specifically meant to prevent one team from staying on top. The New England Patriots did it for 20 years with Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. That's the standard. That's the benchmark. And as incredible as it was to watch, as dominant as they were, the football world eventually moved past it when Brady left and the dynasty ended. The Kansas City Chiefs are now in the conversation as the second great dynasty of this era. And here's the thing about dynasties. They don't last forever. Something always breaks the chain. A key injury. A retirement. A scheme that finally gets cracked. The salary cap catching up. Something. But right now, the window is still open. Mahomes is young enough that this team has years of competitive football ahead of it. Kelce is still producing. The coaching staff is intact. The culture is strong. And now, with Haason Reddick potentially making this defense even scarier, the window doesn't feel like it's closing. It feels like it's being pushed wider open. You want to know the craziest part of all of this? The Chiefs were already scary before this. Think about that. They already had Mahomes. They already had Kelce. They already had Andy Reid drawing up plays that make defenses look foolish. They already had a defense under Spagnuolo that was more than capable of stopping opposing offenses. They already had the culture, the experience, the championship pedigree. And somehow, they found a way to potentially get even better. That's what makes this team special. That's what makes this moment feel different from every other roster move every other team makes every other offseason. It's not just that they added a good player. It's the timing. It's the fit. It's the idea that this particular player, in this particular system, at this particular moment, could be the thing that pushes this dynasty into rarefied air. 4 Super Bowls in 6 years. That's already historic. What would a 5th look like? What would that conversation do to the legacy? To the comparisons? To the place this team holds in the history of the sport? Okay, last thing. And I want you to really sit with this. Right now, somewhere in the AFC, in some film room, in some war room, in some coach's office with a whiteboard covered in X's and O's, someone is watching Haason Reddick highlights. And they're not excited about what they're seeing. They're worried. Because they know that next season, when they line up against the Kansas City Chiefs, they're going to have to deal with this. They're going to have to scheme against Reddick while also accounting for Mahomes. They're going to have to design a game plan that somehow stops this defense and this offense simultaneously. They're going to have to ask their offensive linemen to be perfect on the edge while also asking their defensive backs to cover Travis Kelce all game long. That's an almost impossible ask. And the Chiefs? The Chiefs are going to show up to Arrowhead, in that red stadium, with that crowd, with that noise, with that legacy hanging in the air, and they're going to play their game. Mahomes behind center. Kelce in the slot. Reddick lined up on the edge. Reid on the sideline. And the rest of the NFL trying to figure out how to stop something that might just be unstoppable. That's the picture. That's the reality. That's what Haason Reddick joining the Kansas City Chiefs actually means. And if you think the dynasty is slowing down, if you think the window is closing, if you think the rest of the AFC is about to catch up and finally take that crown, you might want to look at this team one more time. Because they don't look like a team that's slowing down. They look like a team that's just getting started.